What's up guys, it's Jughead here, just a down-to-earth guy trying to bring you some down-to-earth content. Welcome back to my Let's Watch Mob Psycho 100 series. Today we are going to be watching episode 7. Exaltation, I've Obtained Loss, I believe is the title of the episode today. Which is an interesting title just to break down real quick. Exaltation, I believe, is defined as like this overwhelming sense of happiness. Which is ironic when it's followed by I've obtained loss. So somebody has an overwhelming sense of happiness for having lost something. Now, from last episode, it's pretty much confirmed Ritsu is an esper after that fork was just contorted to all hell in his bout of anger. So his emotion is what drives his psychic abilities, similar to Mob. And Ritsu and Mob's dynamic as brothers. We've seen the character sibling dynamic of opposites. They represent each other's opposites. But now it's going to be interesting to see an actual fork in the road, a path, a light side and a dark side. And unfortunately, it's going to break my heart watching Ritsu become stronger, get more in tune with his psychic abilities, but for the wrong intentions and going down the wrong direction. And that's why I see Ritsu being the one that is going to be exalted over this sense of loss. And what is he going to lose? I feel like it's going to be him losing his innocence, losing his image, or this, I don't know what he's built up, or just, I think he's just going to lose his innocence after helping do that scheme against Tenga. I think there's just going to be this loss of innocence in him, and just the exaltation that you get, kind of like, it's almost like a supervillain role of like a Joker or a Green Goblin or a Doc Ock or any villain or anybody that's experienced tragedy, where when you lose everything, when you've lost something, it's like you're no longer on a perfect slate. You lose that perfection so you can just go and do. I don't really know how to describe it. Hopefully it's explained more in the episode. I don't want to take up too much time. I'm already going to be about 3 minutes already talking here. So let's just get into the episode and I'll provide some commentary along the way. So I shall see you in 5 seconds after this wipe. So, Mob Psycho 100, episode 7. Like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you aren't already. With that out of the way, let's watch, shall we? Gonna be a sad next couple episodes, I have a feeling. Just seeing Ritsu go down this dark path. This is also what confirmed to me that Ritsu has to be an esper, having seen Dimple. Happy that Dimple is alive, but this conflicting feeling knowing that Ritsu is indeed an esper. White Tea Poison. Badass name. Except now everybody thinks Mob is this big tough guy that they have to go up against. He's thinking he's a gang leader for the entire school. Are you serious? He's gonna be so unassuming. It's gonna be Teru all over again. Also, what happened to Teru? Are we gonna see him anytime soon? Because he is a changed person, so I would like to see him now be on the side of Mob. But let's skip the intro here. But that's going to be the interesting thing, isn't it? It's going to be my feelings of how Ritsu used to be almost this poster child of perfection, and now he's going down this dark path. While Teru, I originally thought, oh, is this going to be our villain of the series? But now I feel like, are we going to get some X-Men, Avengers, Fantastic Four almost, of like teaming up with Mob, being friends, changed his ways? But that'll be interesting. And this is just, I'm so happy Dimple's back. But he's so weak he couldn't even get into the house on his own. So we'll have to see. Oh! He's never seen him before. Ritsu doesn't even have any idea that he is an esper or what's going on. Uh-oh. This is... Oh. He couldn't get to Mob. He couldn't get through Mob's head. But is he going to get into Ritsu's head? You wouldn't be seeing him. Yeah, you wouldn't be seeing him otherwise. Please, Dimple, I like you. Please don't be the reason Ritsu goes down this dark path. Please don't influence wrong intentions. Uh-oh. You crumpled that fork to shit before. It's a world that's out of my reach. It's influenced by emotion, I'm assuming. It's something that has never been tapped into. It's kind of like opening up your aura nodes in Hunter x Hunter. See, it's gonna happen. Yep, it all down to emotion. Uh-oh. Oh no. His dream has always been to be like his brother. To be like his older brother. But if he can surpass him... Yep, what did I just say? I can be like my brother? Dear God. We've seen this in the past of... Subtly, like in the past, of Ritsu and Mob represent each other's opposites. Mob wanting to be Ritsu, Ritsu wanting to be Mob. But it's been more so character, not so much plot yet. Now it's going to be the fork in the road. So, like, it's better to actually try them. Yeah. Mob is gullible and innocent, naive about the cruelty of the world that exists. While Mob is the other archetypal teenager brother on the flip side of the coin. He's seen and experienced that dirt and justifies it as a necessary greater good, I feel, is what's going to happen. And it's just going to be sad to see. So Dimple has entered his body, but he can't control his body. Kind of like a Yuji in Jujutsu Kaisen. Dear God. I'm feeling for Tanga. We're about to get all these good guys, you know. Teru is going to be a changed man. Tanga is about to be a bro. We already got Musashi. Reagan is a good mentor. This is going to be the entire point. Mob has good people around him to influence him. Who does Ritsu have? Nobody. And the people he does surround himself with are other bad people. Yep, due to emotions. Shitting your pants. That would just cause 100% embarrassment. I wonder what kind of powers you get with that. Honor student, in the student council, athletic, popular. Yeah. Uh-oh. They're getting rid of all the intimidating people. All the people that might be above them. Setting all these people up to get canceled, just like they did with Tanga. Dear God. Yeah. Ritsu is surrounding himself with the worst. Breaking my heart to see him go down this path. To want to be so much like your brother, but doing so with the worst intentions. Or not even intentions, because he doesn't even realize what he's doing is wrong. Blinded. Deep black scar engraved in their life. Yeah, this shit can affect you for the rest of your life. Yep. Drunk with power. Yeah, he's suffering, I believe. He doesn't want to be doing this. But what else is there to do? Corruption and guilt. Those are the things that become fuel for my powers. Dear God. That's all I'm going to keep saying, dear God. If I were able to control my powers on my own, I wouldn't need you. Yeah, he won't need your ass. He's like wearing the Venom parasite when Spider-Man 3, when he wore the when he came into contact with Venom, came more powerful, but it corrupted him. Oh my god. And then you have this guy who's just gonna wanna extract all these powers. Become an esper himself. Are we gonna see a Ritsu mob conflict? Uh-oh. He's about, don't use your powers on people. Yep. This is not good. What the fuck is that supposed to do? Dude, my heart's breaking. Teru! Teru! Top of his head! What the fuck is that? You think you're... Oh my god, Teru's... It got through to him. It's hard looking at someone who reminds me of my old self. You may think you're special, but you're not. Don't rely... Oh my god, Mob got through to him. He's a changed man. Changed kid. I'm sure he's not much different from the oh god. Oh god. Yeah, who's ranking? Mob's obviously up top. But who ranks higher? He's not using it. God. So Teru is quite considerably powerful. But he's not using it. He didn't use it to like take over Ritsu or he like used it to overpower, kind of just send a subtle message. Kind of not intimidation, but just, hey, there's no reason for this. I can't believe I lost to someone other than his brother. God. What's up, Ma? His entire path is going to be trying to defeat his own brother. The vase of happiness. You say vase or vase? Oh, she's gonna be perfect for Reagan. Another scammer. Another con artist. This naive kid. He's gonna fall for it. Where's Reagan? Get Reagan in here. If there's anything that Reagan can sense, it's another bullshitter. Okay. Oh! She being a little flirtatious, trying to get that money. And now he has to buy it. What the hell is on the back wall? Problems that you can solve with money are better than those you can't. That's actually a good line. I might use that. Call your parents. Call Reagan, please. Call Reagan. Call Reagan. Hopefully be Reagan. Yep. Okay. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. Con artist can sense another con artist. 5 million yen? Oh, trust me, Reagan knows how the world works. He knows how to take advantage. When Reagan gets serious, I like this side of him. He'll stand up to anything, and I like that characteristic about him. Especially for people he cares about, and he does care about Mob. Yeah, are we equal now? Yeah, you running a bullshit scam. If anybody's gonna know it, it's him. Uh-oh. Are you threatening? When that happens, you keep hearing strange noises at night and weird things keep popping up in pictures. And it becomes unbearable. Though the spirit might have transferred to you guys now. Oh, man. I love that look. I love a serious Reagan, because we haven't really seen that yet. Yo. Wait, what's going on? How did he just do that? How did he do that? Oh, did they work together? Yeah, you're telling that to an ironic person. Yeah, they sure suck. Only the lowest of the low try to take advantage of someone's weakness. This school doesn't belong to you. This guy's just imposing as hell. So sketchy. I just want to know what it felt like to be a fool. What do you mean? So he just wanted to be popular. The exact opposite of what Ritsu cares about or wants. He already had that. And that's such a small goal to have in his eyes now. Back in the days of a 3DS. Yeah, I knew Musashi was going to help his boy Tenga. He can't be seen. He's got no place. Yep. He's broken. He's done in for. Yeah, Musashi stand in between. There's no way you can have everybody go up against him. White tea poison. Oh, are all the gang leaders here? You just had to show up with no shirt on? I love that the shots that we're getting, we're looking up at our two characters here. Because they're overtowering everybody. Take the power is like, I can't even describe it. And now he's laying in trash all over again, just like his own bedroom. Ritsu can keep going on without you. Yeah, he can take care of himself. He's all cocky. The confidence and his power has gotten to him. He's nothing at the end of the day. He's gonna keep getting beat up. Because he's the most popular. He's the one in charge, pretty much. Oh yeah, I forgot his name. Shinji. Yeah, what is that saying? Make sure your own house is in order before you go about judging the world. Like, make your own bed before you start judging the world. Make your own house in order. Who the hell? You think that... Who is he? Assassin's Creed? You think he's Itachi? Wrong anime, dude. You're not Sasuke or Itachi. What are you doing? You're in the wrong anime. He says that with a smile on his face. He doesn't need a partner. He's ditched Shinji. He about to ditch you. All these gang leaders. How many schools are there in this goddamn city? Damn, we got fucking Yao Ming over here. I can't get over Teru's fucking hair. That's all brain now. Oh, he's pretending to be his brother. If he can't be as powerful as brother, or can't be like his brother, pretend to be him. Yep, team up. Be friends. Uh-oh, this guy. The guy Mob saw last episode. A seriously dark power he sensed. He froze everybody in their path. What the fuck? Oh man, he's really harnessed his power now. I didn't think he'd get this in tune with his abilities this quickly. Ow! I will not judge you people, because I know now. What? When people stray from the right path, there usually isn't an actual reason. It's like that even now. I'm facing enemies that will have lost all will to fight, and I'm moving forward for the sake of violence. There's no reason there. This kind of freedom is strong. I'm much freer than all of you, because he has obtained loss. He's lost his limits. I've obtained loss. Exaltation. He's exalted because he has ultimate freedom. He's lost his limits. Uh-oh. His own brother. Holy shit! It's about to go down, physically and emotionally. So, let's discuss. Undoubtedly the best episode so far this series. This episode had everything I wanted. Everything connecting, coming together, predictions and wishes coming true. I love the feeling of 50% happiness, 50% heartbreak. I feel like with this episode, we are definitely, no doubt, on the cusp, the horizon of entering the true, real depth, meaning, emotional impact, any other appropriate word you can think of here, that this anime wholeheartedly has to offer that makes it one of the most criminally underrated yet masterful works of animation and storytelling all in one. You know how some shows start torturously slow or empty, or by comparison, take way more than just 6 episodes to even begin to get remotely interesting. Well, here, Mob Psycho 100, I had 6 episodes under my belt already prior to this episode here. 6 episodes that were entirely engaging in their own right, that stood on their own 2 feet separately, always presenting a fascinating sociological or philosophical concept or question, building off the previous, setting up the next. Some of my best discussions have been in this series so far in just 6 episodes. Some of the most engaging storytelling I've ever experienced, and the gold standard in my eyes when it comes to animation. And that all together amalgamated into one, yielding some of both my favorite and longest discussions I've had on this channel so far. And now we are here, 12 episodes total in this season. So officially we're now crossing the halfway mark, signaling true that we are entering the main plot line now with immense understanding and attachment to our characters and what is ultimately emotionally at stake here. So let's go through. Sorry, I'm adjusting my socks. Let's go through the episode. I'll pick apart what stood out to me, what my mind hung on most. But I want to spend most of the discussion hovering around like 2 battling concepts that I felt most conveyed throughout this episode. This is going to be a long discussion for sure because this was a dense episode. So just sit back and relax for this. Right off the bat, this episode done flipped me upside down from the cliffhanger last episode. I was so happy to see Dimple back, finding out he survived and was still alive somehow, thinking we were still gonna have our little annoying companion that might turn a new leaf by remaining in Mob's company. You know, like if Dimple couldn't get through to Mob, maybe Mob could get through to him. So have some of that good energy bleed off and radiate and get absorbed by Dimple. And we could see some good spirits for a change, like our own little Casper the Friendly Ghost. But no, too much to ask for. I was really starting to love Dimple before. The cliffhanger had me hyped, but he's not in Mob's company anymore. Mob thinks Dimple is dead. Dimple is by Ritsu's side now, and that instantly puts an uneasy feeling in your stomach. For me, I immediately remembered just how manipulative he is. He manipulated me. He even got me on his side, cutting him some slack, but he was always the same. His goals haven't changed. Like I said, he couldn't get to Mob, so what's his next best option? Go after the younger brother, go after the more naive, vulnerable one. It's ironic. Mob, we know, is the more naive, vulnerable, gullible when it comes to social dynamics and interactions, but he is definitely not when it comes to the ways of possessing psychic abilities and being an esper, as it has been a defining aspect of his existence. He has come to hold as an ultimate responsibility of his. Where Ritsu, as we know, the two represent each other's opposites. Ritsu may succeed in the ways of popularity, friendship, and other social hierarchies. He is literally just learning for the very first time he is also an esper with psychic powers. You couldn't be set up for greater disaster by having someone like Dimple be such a negative influence. When Ritsu said under his breath, "It's a world out of my reach," that line almost gave me goosebumps because that's a villain quote if I ever heard one. You always hear some comic book villains or movie antagonists, or in this case, manga antagonists, saying something like this. I remember lightly hoping Ritsu could discover and develop his powers if he had any. I take that back now and would have never said that knowing this would have been the timeline. I thought he'd have Mob with him to take his first steps as an esper, even Reagan, maybe. Now our boy's turning into Sasuke, lusting for power. A quote like that, "It's a world out of my reach," that is someone lustful, lusting, seeing the abilities as an entirely new world, an entirely new life. And you only want a new world when you don't like the one you're living in now. And you only want a new life when you don't like the one you have. And those are the most desperate people. And the most desperate are the most willing. And such a different feeling now. I imagined how hype it would be to watch Ritsu harness his psychic powers, and couldn't be further opposite now. The first word that comes to my mind is intimidating. I loved the emotion uh, delivered through Ritsu's face, the visuals of his eyes in particular for me. So much of the story was told in his eyes, in not just this scene, but the entire episode together. You got bewilderment, revelation, euphoria, even enlightenment, I say. Describe it as an illumination in his eyes, going from eyes belonging to a boy of existential agony to eyes of a boy updating that world that's no longer out of reach, to the eyes of a boy focused and determined to dominate this new world he's discovered. But, real quick, can anyone explain how or why Ritsu was able to open the floodgates on his powers or turn on the switch? Mob can use his powers at will. It's no longer contingent on just emotion, but his explosive state is triggered by reaching a maximal point of emotional compromise, be it anger, sadness, guilt, etc. But twice in the beginning, we saw Ritsu only able to do what he did by tapping into those deep seated emotions. So is this like opening up your aura nodes like Nen users do in Hunter x Hunter? Or opening your chakra points in Naruto? Both times he bent the spoons, those events came after unleashing his emotions. So is it kind of like starting a car for the first time after a long time just sitting? You know, the fuel pump, injectors causing it to run really lean. Got to give it a good strong revving to clear some shit out of the pipes, get some fuel flowing. And then, like, Dimple decides to help him out with this. And this whole thing gave me like Palpatine Anakin vibes. You know, Dimple eagerly telling Ritsu, if you want to suppress your brother. And Ritsu gets excited, asking, can I be like my brother? And Dimple says, yes, if you let me use your body. Reminds me of the Anakin dark side downfall because of the idea of trade offs and what one is willing to sacrifice of themselves for what they want. Remember, this entire series, all the way back since episode one, it has been portrayed to us. These brothers represent each other's opposites, okay? Mob wants to be Ritsu, Ritsu wants to be Mob. Everything one of them strives for, the other possesses. Everything one of them wishes they could let go of and detach from is what the other wishes could be bestowed upon them. So this way, this was only abstract in the past, but it turns concrete now. Now forms a metaphorical fork in the road, two paths, the light and the dark side. Ritsu only dreamed of being like his brother, being his brother in terms of having what he has. But Dimple offers something greater he had never even considered, surpassing his brother, beating him, being above him. You can imagine he could almost salivate or drool at the mouth from such a thought. All he has to do is give himself up to Dimple, sacrifice himself as a temple of sorts. Reminds me of Anakin, who dreamt of death. He dreamt of his mother dying, and ultimately she did in his arms. When his nightmares stayed with him, however, depicting the death of the woman he loves, his wife, the mother of his children, Padme, he becomes desperate. And I said, the most desperate become the most willing, willing to do what could save her life. So when Palpatine comes to him with this knowledge of the dark side of the Force that allowed one the ability to create or save life, knowing this was Anakin's nightmare, as he likely planted it himself, as is described in Legends content, Anakin turns, and as is his trade off, his sacrifice, his end of the bargain, though just as the Force can give life, it can also take it away. And comes the irony here that Anakin fell to the dark side to save her, only for the very dark side of himself to be the cause of her death when he seemingly killed her and stripped the life force from her. So the dream he was dreaming of her death was him killing her. I just see some parallels here. Maybe you can see them too and break it down yourself, or maybe you see parallels to another anime or show or movie, and I'd love to hear that from you. So, Dimple can enter a host body, but isn't powerful enough to actually possess the mind and take over. Kind of like Sukuna to Yuji in Jujutsu Kaisen. So, up until this point, Ritsu didn't know he had powers because he never reached that state of intense emotion that boiled his abilities to the surface for a moment or two to spill over. He did always appear as the monotone operate at a low, consistent frequency, not too excitable of a person, so just might have never known, But now that Dimple has entered his body, it's almost like unclogging the pipes, maybe? Like, kind of like Wing opening up Gon and Killua's aura nodes with his own Hatsu, or, when Jiraiya lifted part of that almost like filtering seal off Naruto's body that prevented Naruto from being able to harness that red chakra, but also more efficiently control his own blue chakra. A lot of connections to other anime that I'm making in my mind. I'm trying to compare it to Hunter x Hunter and Naruto. And then I can also compare it to Jujutsu Kaisen with Sukuna being with Yuji, yet can't possess him fully. And Dimple said, it's because I'm controlling the output, but you've always had latent psychic powers. I can also compare it to Venom in Spider Man 3. You become more powerful, but this symbiotic relationship you share in a sense with this parasite, as it logically would, it infects you, it corrupts you. More powerful, but less of yourself. And that was the dilemma Peter Parker had to sort through. What is the trade off? The opportunity cost in economics terms, being an economist myself, he is willing to accept. What is he willing to accept? Ritsu will be faced with that same dilemma. What are the trade offs? And it's almost always harder to face your dilemmas, your issues, your trials and tribulations on your own, alone, or even more so if those you do surround yourself with are of the wrong influence. Mob has good people around him. He seems to naturally surround himself with good people, or good people seem to naturally stumble into his life. Just like Gon in Hunter x Hunter, he has this innate quality in him to win people over. Not everybody, but the good people who matter, yes. Same thing I'm getting from Mob. Had he not had Reagan in his life, for example, who taught him to never use his abilities on or against other people and to be confident in himself, but never be so arrogant as to think he is better than anyone else, Mob might have succumbed to Teru in worse ways than he did, or he could have been a Teru himself. Mob has Reagan, who has become an incredible mentor to him. Musashi, just an all around bro. The friend everyone deserves to have, supportive, encouraging. He got mixed in with the gang trauma by accident, but after that respectful exchange on the stairs, as well as their mutual connection with Musashi I now feel like Tenga will also become an acquaintance to Mob as well. Even Taro, I believe, will figuratively extend his hand out to Mob as the two will be friends now. Then you look at Ritsu, look around him. This guy's got no one in his corner. Guy's in the ring alone. Dude's got Dimple trying to possess his body, as we know his goal is to become literal god. And he's only with Ritsu because Mob is too pure, so Ritsu is sloppy seconds. Actually, as I think of it right now, literally everyone we've seen him interact with is using him. This Dimple is using him. Shinji is using him. The leader of the Awakening Lab is using him. He has absolutely zero guidance or mentorship or genuine connections. The only ones who could help him would be Mob, who he separated himself from as he now sees his brother as a rival. And Reagan, who he has never liked in the first place for an odd reason, I cannot tell or I don't know. They are just the worst two people to ever cross paths, and I hate it, man. I thought it was over after Tenga. But no, Shinji and Ritsu are still working together in full force now in getting rid of who they see as scum and garbage of the school, which are essentially only those more popular or successful or higher up on the social ladder than them. Or I guess just more so just Shinji because Ritsu doesn't really care. The two of them going down that infamous archetypal route, the self-righteous doers. Like, what other movies and shows can you list off that had the same character and plot element? Like, right off the bat, I can immediately think of, like, Ozymandias from Watchmen, where the antagonist justifies what they do as a necessary evil, as a means for achieving greater good, even though they don't even perceive it as evil because they're the ones doing it, just a necessary act for a greater good. Like, why did Ritsu begin to go this route in that first student council meeting? Ritsu said he has to make this school a safe place for his brother. But good intentions don't always breed good results, as we know, similar to the idea of intent and effect. Ritsu went so quickly from wanting to protect his brother and create an environment for him to blossom to having this deep seated envy and almost resentment take over, where he wants nothing more than to surpass and defeat his brother. And now comes the oh too well known lust for power. And this episode had so many amazing, hard hitting, or deep lines, like the narrator perfectly describing the effects of their moral actions leave deep black scars engraved on them, which are going to remain as burdens for the to live with in their minds forever. The loss of their own innocence through corruption, the loss of good, the loss of moral standing, and the idea of being clean or pure. Even if you seek forgiveness or redemption, even though you may attempt to turn a new leaf and change, that shit will always stay with you. It's like a cancer. Going into surgery to remove that tumor, but that deep scar will always remain on your body. Their actions leave marks that cannot be erased, deep black scars engraved on them. And I love that description, okay? The two of them also represent like some perfect duality of man or dichotomy of every choice or every event or situation you exist in. The two represent halves of one whole. Shinji becoming drunk with power, feeling a delusional sense of accomplishment for what he has plotted out, where then Ritsu represents the subconscious or the inevitable, who suffers greatly. Hold on, pause, ignore the wardrobe change. It is unbelievably cold in my room, so I had to grab the cardigan. And it's the first time I was wearing my contacts in months, and I put them in. My eyes were unbelievably dry. So we're moving back into glasses territory. So let's move on. So much powerful dialogue in this episode. It was fantastic. Ritsu admitting that the source and fuel for his powers now are no longer anger or stress or channeled by the efforts of Dimple. Now it is the corruption and guilt he has for his actions. The guilt that is that deep black engraved scar. The corruption that is Dimple and Shinji almost as parasites. Like I compared to earlier, the corruption of the innocent soul, like a Cain and Abel, like Venom corrupting Spider Man. Remember that scene in Spider Man 3, the church tower scene, the imagery and the symbolism behind Peter Parker having to literally and symbolically tear himself apart to free himself from malevolence and corruption, like a phoenix rising from its own ashes or a moth once transformed, struggling with all its power to break from its cocoon a new being. Peter Parker has to rip Venom off his body to escape what he now realizes to be the eventual source of his downfall, which we ultimately see Eddie Brock suffer his own demise after he takes Venom. Even Dimple, who clearly possesses an evil alignment, is taken aback somewhat by Ritsu's change in personality, as we saw Peter Parker's personality begin to change too. It wasn't just Spider Man and when you're in the suit, him becoming more powerful. That's one thing. It was Peter Parker as a man and a human being, as a friend, a boyfriend, a photographer, a grandson, just all of that. It was Peter Parker as a man becoming more corrupt and less of himself. And just as he battled with trade offs and sacrifices, so will Ritsu. And then it's like, shit, it ain't even over yet. Like, we still got the goddamn awakening lab to worry about too now. I can't remember the leader's name. All I remember is he sucks. And he just recruits these kids in an effort to awaken their abilities and then somehow harness or extract them for himself, like that some mutant program in X-Men or some shit. Like, I still don't understand how he expects to become an esper himself. I guess now he can move on to the next stages, seeing that Ritsu has full-blown powers he confidently shows off. Like, honestly, that was like a 30-second scene, so I don't even know what the hell plotline is going to be going on with the Awakening Lab, other than maybe some big super mega Kajunga mutant Esper. Like, the leader of the Awakening Lab turns into like some fucking Esper, like in the Incredible Hulk movie when that guy turns into the Abomination, I think is his name. Who knows? I was about to say Doomsday, but that's DC. Abomination is the Hulk villain. And then what also confuses me, maybe I'm dumb and I couldn't interpret it even after watching twice somehow. So maybe somebody explain this, but did Shinji actually end up ratting Ritsu out and telling the victims he had Ritsu plant the evidence on them? So I'm confused about this because I'm pretty positive that that group of kids who approached Ritsu said they were told that he's the one who planted the evidence that ruined them, and that's why they want to fight him. But that has me confused because it didn't seem to bother Ritsu at all that he got ratted out and snitched on. And like, bitch, you snitched on me. Your ass is dead to me. Fuck you. But that wasn't what happened. That would be my reaction. But I guess then again, I don't have psychic powers that allow me to beat the hell out of any normie I want to. So I guess I'd be pretty unbothered too at that point. Like, who cares? But I would still love if someone could explain that dynamic for me, just so I'm 100% on the same correct page as everybody else. So thank you to whoever helps me understand anything throughout this discussion. But let's get into the highlight of the episode for me, Teru. Boy, do I fucking love Teru, dude. What a redemptive character. I said before, my favorite storytelling archetype is redemption. I absolutely love the messages and the storytelling that has been told through Teru as a character and a symbol. Seeing him return got me so hyped and then instantly made me laugh with his hair all over again. I love the comic relief that is attached to him. It's a great contrast and balance with the philosophical side he can represent too. 2 episodes ago, the top of his head was at 0%. Today, it's standing tall as hell at 150%. Again, the balance between comic relief and drama is stellar. This imposing character who wants to break Mob down. He succeeds, but in doing so, we see his head shaved bald and butt ass naked in the middle of the field, resulting in this epiphanic moment. And now it's reversed, where the comic relief comes first, followed by the drama and taking him seriously. And I thought that was a cool way to portray his opposite demeanor and existence now as this reborn individual. He very subtly reminds me of like a Kurapika or something now with the way he speaks. He comes off as this higher state enlightened being. He's been reformed. I don't even think Teru just stumbled upon Ritsu, quite honestly. I feel like he, just like Mob, can maybe sense other espers around, kind of like sensing their chi, like in Dragon Ball, and he tries to be on the lookout for certain dangers, and maybe he was tracking Ritsu or keeping an eye on him. I don't know, because just like Mob could detect a very dark, sinister aura of sorts off that purple hooded figure, I'm sure maybe Teru could maybe sense a dark, evil aura around Ritsu. And then the camera angle looks up at Teru to convey this idea that Teru exists on both a higher plane of existence, but another level of skill as well. We're not going to be surprised to see Teru overpower Ritsu. No, we're going to be directly told, even Dimple knows, he was there during the Mob Teru showdown. Teru is the one who disintegrated his ass when he tried to defend Mob. He knows this motherfucker ain't one to mess with. And now violence is no longer the answer. It was so much more powerful to hear Teru casually yet firmly state, I think that's enough. If you grow dependent on that, you're going to get hurt. You've got the wrong idea. You think you're special. It's hard looking at someone who reminds me of my old self. This is a warning. Don't try relying on your psychic powers. This hit so different and so hard. Teru sees his old self in Ritsu. He survived a triple question mark mob explosion and came out on the other side somehow and came out someone new, someone better. He was Icarus and he flew too close to the sun. And I remember at the end of episode 5 when Teru was just standing there bald and naked, you could see the look on his face. He was smiling like he knew, like he was himself was freed, like the venom parasite was ripped off of him. And he learned he was not special. Everything is relative and contingent on perspective. He saw non-espers as ants and the world the anthill under his boots. To be normal is to be pathetic. When face to face with Mob and his own powers, he learns someone sits above him on the food chain, on the hierarchical ladder. And this someone doesn't even like to use their powers. They don't even rely on them. And he isn't special by comparison. He's no better than the average civilian in respect to Mob. And this was an enlightening epiphanic event for Teru. And enlightenment brings understanding, wisdom, freedom, and contentment. And now it is his turn, and he shared that responsibility to guide others from the dark path he was once on. Telling Ritsu, don't grow dependent on your powers like I once did to move forward through life. All you will end up is hurt and hurting others, as I was hurt and as I hurt others. Teru might not have as deep and dark a scar as Ritsu does, but I'm sure he does have a scar nonetheless he must live with and remember as well. He is speaking objectively, not anecdotally. You have the wrong idea. Trust me, you think you're special, but you're not. I thought I was special, and my overconfidence, my cockiness, arrogance, it did me in. I lost everything, and now I must rebuild. That is what will happen to you when you realize you are nobody and find yourself in the same shoes I was in. History does repeat itself. I don't want violence. I don't want conflict. So all I'm going to do is give you this warning. Do not rely on your powers. You will find yourself left with nothing when you also find yourself powerless when what you thought was everything is taken away from you. Teru is almost looking at a reflection of his former self and being redeemed. Why not be the figure his past self didn't listen to? Ironically, taking Mob's place, Ritsu's brother. But just as old Teru was, Ritsu was overconfident, cocky, and ignorant arrogance or arrogant ignorance. I don't know, whichever one sounds better, I guess. So, since history does repeat itself slightly, as expected, Ritsu thinks he's hot shit and his shit don't smell. Remember in my previous discussions, Ritsu could be the main character of his own show, but he acts as though he purposely took a supporting role to his brother's spotlight. Well, now Ritsu thinks he's the main character, and he ain't. He doesn't know who Teru is. He doesn't know he was the cause for what Ritsu only saw on TV sitting at home. He gave Mob a run for his money, broke Mob emotionally after failing physically. Ritsu just thinks this is some random kid no better than the rest of the herd he's encountered at the Awakening Lab, and boy, does he learn an awfully quick how wrong he is. And I just gotta say, what a dominant but mature display of power. Teru already sensed Ritsu would lash out and try to show a physical display of force, and not wanting to cause a scene in broad daylight amongst the public, causing danger or harm to anyone around them, Teru extends his arm and reaches for Ritsu's hand, making it appear as though the two are peacefully shaking hands. Teru saying, "Why, thank you for the handshake. I'm Teru, a pleasure." And just sends a surge of his own psychic power through his own arm into Ritsu like a conduit, overwhelming Ritsu with just an incredible amount of power and energy he had vastly underestimated and just not expected at all. And I love this because Teru could easily defeat him through violence. What is that Pantera album called? Vulgar display of power. It could be exactly that. He could easily do that. But what would that accomplish? This conflict does not need to be dissolved that way. All he has to do is send Ritsu a message like, "You don't know who I am or who you're trying to instigate here. You have no chance. Don't even bother." Just sends Ritsu to his knees like, "Bitch, bow to your superior," looking down on him saying, "Having trouble staying on your own 2 feet? Ah, so young." Just telling him, like, "You naive little fool of a kid. Not just younger than me in age, but also experience. I do want to make sure we remember there is a I do want to make sure we remember there is a great distinction between the two of them that make it so they can't be fully seen as mirror images of each other. Remember, Teru never met another Esper in his life before Mob, therefore thought he was the only one of his kind to exist, if I remember that correctly. It's pretty easy then to understand why Teru would have come to consider himself almost as a god. And being a god, you make everyone below you bend to your will, and that's what he was trying to do. While Ritsu, on the other hand, he knows other Espers exist. His own brother is one, and some of his most powerful memories, perhaps even traumatizing, call back to events involving its existence. Ritsu is also fully aware of what he is doing, and he knows it as wrong, and he holds a great deal of guilt, but his lust for power counterbalances it, if not outweighs it. So there is that distinction you have to make. Apologize for that random ass hiccup. I wanted to get through that thought of mine. It just reminds me of Spider-Man 3 again. I guess Spider-Man 3 is going to be my main pop culture film reference this discussion. Teru is Harry Osborn. Ritsu is Venom. Let me get into this. Harry Osborn goes through complete redemption in the third Spider-Man movie. Once the new Goblin, after learning the truth about his father, he didn't abandon his power altogether. He instead only abandoned the path of his father's evil footsteps he previously followed and utilized his power for good. Teru, once a godlike figure in his own eyes, after learning the truth of his irrelevance and averageness, he doesn't abandon his Esper abilities altogether. He instead utilizes his abilities for good. Ritsu becomes corrupted by external forces, just as Eddie Brock is corrupted by Venom, and his own lust for power ultimately brings his demise, though I do not know what fate lies in store for Ritsu just yet, of course. I think it's very fascinating to note as well another connection. Remember, although Harry Osborn achieved redemption and had he not died by sacrificing himself, he still would have bore that scar on his face forever. Remember, he tried to throw that pumpkin bomb at Peter Parker, but he snatched it with his web and slung it back at him right as it exploded next to his face, and he was left disfigured with this scar and third-degree burns, or whatever that would have been. And he would have had to bear that scar on his face forever, just as it is described in this episode that such immoral acts leave scars that last forever. I think that's a really important connection. Almost all antagonists or even gray complex characters bear scars or other facial disfigurements, always on the face for some reason, where we witness and capture emotion most, near the eyes, the windows to the soul, as they are called. It is an archetypal physical trait and symbol across all storytelling forms, whether it be historic or modern day mythology in anime, comic books, hero movies, etc. The Joker, probably the most infamous, yet you also have characters like Lex Luthor, Doctor Doom, Thanos, Darth Vader, Kylo Ren. I'm gonna get these names wrong. Ernst Bofeld, Alex Trevelyan, and Le Chiffre, all from the James Bond franchise. Phantom of the Opera literally even exists in their name, like Scar from Lion King or Scarface. Those are the ones I can immediately think of off the top of my head. Let alone, I'm sure you can all think of countless anime manga characters who possess scars as well. I don't know how Kakashi got a scar on his face where his Sharingan is, although he might not be an antagonist. I also said complex, great characters, and I can sense him being one as well. How he came to possess the Sharingan, perhaps left not just a physical scar, but a deeper one on the soul as well. That's the connection I'm trying to make. The scarred individual wears their history on their face, even if they exhibit fundamental change, like every character I just mentioned has. Such characters are incapable of escaping their pasts, as the experiences that led to their wounds can never vanish from sight. Whether someone looks upon them or they look upon themselves, they are always reminded. I will finish my thoughts on this later, but I want to include the scene with Reagan here because he subtly fits into this mold here as well. The scene with the vase was both hilarious and eye opening. There ain't no way you're bullshitting a bullshitter, okay? Mob couldn't have called a better person to come help him. A master con artist like himself can read through another's con. Those two schmucks were no match to such a master manipulator and scammer. He read them like a coloring book. Dude knows every trick in the book practically. Like, come on, dude. Reagan managed to make the strongest esper I know of so far, Mob, believe that he is a more powerful esper, okay? This part was hilarious, but what I meant by eye opening is witnessing kind of for the first time with deeper dialogue and conflict with him at the forefront that when Reagan gets serious, he displays an incredibly badass side to him, giving off alpha vibes. My favorite characters, as I've said in every anime I've currently watching so far, and every movie, every TV show, are those who don't take themselves too seriously at all times, but in moments where being serious is necessary, they flip that switch internally instantaneously. I've already loved seeing Reagan step into the mentor role for Mob, but here you really saw just how protective he is and can be. In that line by Reagan, too. Problems you can solve with money are better than those you can't. That was a fucking bar. And then those two people subtly threaten them, saying, like, what if something unfortunate or disastrous falls upon him as a result of this? And you just get that vibe from Reagan, like, what the hell did you just say? Did you just threaten this kid? Did you just threaten us? Because I know you did not just make a threat right now. Misfortune, disaster, be careful what you're saying now. The connection I wanted to make with Reagan here is the fact he is also a character who cannot escape guilt, just like Ritsu cannot. Mob said to him, con artists are really terrible people. And you see that look on Reagan's face. His eyes look away from Mob and he looks to the side, a little uneasy, and agrees with him, saying, yeah, the only the lowest of the low try to take advantage of someone's weaknesses because he knows that's somewhat what he's doing. And the kid he cares about sitting across from him just called him a terrible person without realizing it. And although I wouldn't really call Reagan a bad person, yes, he's a liar. He is a con artist of sorts, but he does help those who come into his practice. Him and Mob have saved people, and he displays redeemable qualities by being a mentor and teacher to Mob. But I'm sure he even may have a very light scar on his mind as well. I do want to know any of your guys' opinions or thoughts on what Ritsu meant, though, when he said, I think I might have gotten tired of myself. I just wanted to know what it felt like to be a fool. Because I don't fully understand what he means by this. I can only interpret it as being tired of his old self. And even if it meant feeling like a fool or doing bad things, he wanted to escape the mold he was stuck in. He wanted to be someone different. And this was just the path he chose that was different. Not so much a fool. Like, I don't think he thinks he's foolish, but I think what he means is I just wanted to know what it felt like to no longer be perfect or no longer be clean or no longer be my old self. And I just wanted to do something else. And I'm you can call me a fool because what I did was wrong and I know it was wrong, but I did it anyways. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I think there is an answer here to be reached, so I'm curious how you analyze the dialogue. So just let me know with that. And all this effort they put into their diabolical schemes, and all Shinji did it for was to be popular and let out some stress. And Ritsu, I think, finds that rather pathetic. Like, what a low goal to have. Ritsu was already popular, and it ain't all that. Ritsu could tell Shinji that himself. His old self he was tired of was popular, and he still wanted more. Ritsu says he has obtained a much bigger world in his eyes. His goals are much more grand than just merely being popular. And as we know, after Teru made him look like a weakling, he told Dimple, I can't believe I lost to someone other than my brother. I want to get even stronger so I won't lose to anyone. The shackles are off now. Exactly what is meant by the title of the episode. That's when I was like, oh, this is what is meant by the title. And then the meaning behind it kept building up. And man, do I feel for Tanga. That's why I felt so hyped to see Musashi being the bro we know he is. Musashi really is the friend we all deserve. What a stellar guy. And I love how he just knocks down the stereotypes of the jock, who has historically been portrayed in movies and shows as the bully or the jerk or the airhead. But Musashi is the jock who protects his friends from the actual bullies and the jerks. Tanga is having literally like a middle school life crisis, rightfully so. His entire reputation and image has been disgraced and tarnished. Entire futures at stake to never heal. All the thoughts swirling around his mind, and he lets out, I've got no place here. None of my friends will even talk to me anymore. That shit sucks to feel, okay? Just sitting in that safe space surrounded by the other misfits, or whatever you want to call them. Even Musashi is there, and imagine your worst nightmare of a person that did all of that to you walks into that room and confronts you. Shinji walks into the room. Like, fuck, what now? But our boy Musashi immediately, without hesitation, steps in between them, literally extends his tree trunk of an arm to block Shinji from Tanga. Like, you want to get to him? You're coming through me, and I know you can't do that. Protecting his friend, and we love that. We stand that shit. Another thing I was a tad confused by, why exactly did Shinji get his ass beat? Is it because the other gang leaders believe Shinji was white tea poison? Or what? Or is it because Shinji rose to be the most powerful at his school that he inadvertently also became the number one target by the other gang leaders? All I remember was Ritsu fucked that one guy up without breaking a single drop of sweat or blinking once, and then Shinji gets his ass beat back to back. Like, what did I miss there? Like, these couple important moments I feel like throughout the episode, I can't interpret them correctly or understand, so help a brother out again if you can. All I remember thinking is, damn, Ritsu vowed to never lose again. Now he ain't holding nothing back. This is a scary side of him. And Ritsu told Shinji a strong quote that I say all the damn time, and I follow that in my own life and what I try to instill in my friends and other people to remember in case they ever veer a path towards toxicity or negativity. The message is the same, but he said it in different words. Shinji is completely defeated and scarred, laying in his room atop a bed of garbage, and Ritsu nonchalantly tells Shinji, I think what you should have cleaned up was this room. This is such a huge philosophical concept I stand firmly with. You should have cleaned up this room instead. To me, what he's saying on a more philosophical level is Make sure your own room is clean before you go out and judge the world. Put your own house in perfect order before you step outside and start criticizing the world. Simply put, make sure you take responsibility over your own misfortunes and flaws and stop pointing your finger. Don't blame the world. If your suffering is your own fault, then actually do something about it. If you think you are some eternal victim and nature is conspiring against you, you attribute everything wrong in your life to some cosmic injustice or sociological injustice that's aimed at you particularly for some reason, which worldview would you rather have? Or which worldview do you think is healthier to live by? The first one, of course. Thinking the latter, you miss out on the great adventure that is life in the first place. You shouldn't judge other people if there's something about yourself that can be judged. Don't judge the world for its problems either. If you have problems of your own, you're not fixing. Don't criticize the world if you're actually contributing to the problems of the world by not fixing yourself. Doing nothing but criticizing the environment around you requires a lot of free time. And where are you getting all that free time from? By not focusing on yourself and fixing yourself first. You wouldn't have all that free time to do that if you were actually putting that free time towards yourself. It's like, even on the most basic of levels, the most basic, like, unless you're a fucking fashion icon, stop giving a shit and judging what other people want to wear or what their style is. Nobody gives a shit what you have to say. Like, I wear the clothes I like to wear. I wear brands I like. I have my own style. I'll wear rings. I'll wear jewelry. I'll highlight my hair. I'll wear nail polish. I'll wear headbands. I have no reason to give a singular fuck what other people wear or say about what I wear or how they like to express themselves or what they think about how I choose to express myself. I could not and do not care less. Rock whatever shit you rockin'. You love it, so I love it. Okay. Or like, I'm confident in myself, but I'm definitely not a fucking model. I wouldn't even say I'm conventionally attractive. Like, there are some objectively attractive guys out there, and I for sure ain't one of them. Don't even try. So, why the hell would I ever think to call somebody ugly? Why would I even have the audacity? Where does that even come from? Like, if I'm asked, I'll be honest and straightforward and say whether or not I am attracted to that person. But there's a difference in saying you're not attractive, you're ugly, versus I'm just not personally attracted to you. It's like a habitual cheater, someone who's been in like 5 toxic relationships that all end in nasty breakups and trauma or whatever, trying to force their relationship advice onto someone. Like, oh, bruh, look at your own damn self in the mirror and shut up. Or like the people, and I fucking hate these people. The people who like criticize other people's jobs or careers, like someone who would judge or talk shit or think it's an insult or talk shit about a waiter, a waitress, a garbage man, or a janitor. I've never heard a garbage man or a janitor complain about their job because they're just working and focusing on themselves. But you know who I hear bitch and moan all of the time? Corporate motherfuckers. It's always the finance people, the marketing people, the business people. I'm in economics, and economics people are like this too. A bunch of bitches. But then they criticize those they see below them. Why are you judging a garbage man? They're productive members of society that we need yet underappreciate. And they work for the city, receive a pension. I live in Chicago. They making 6-figure salaries. If you're complaining about your job to the point you're bitter and you're toxic, that's your own damn fault. Anyone else would be grateful to swoop in on that position right from under your feet and take that from you. Have you taken full advantage of every opportunity available to you? Are you working hard at your career, your relationships? Are you actively trying to improve yourself? No? Then stay in your lane, shut the fuck up, and maybe start doing that. Nobody likes a fucking complainer. If you miss your flight, who the hell are you going to get mad at? The airport? The pilots? not. Only you can get upset at your slow ass self for not getting out of the house in time, okay? If you cause a car accident, that shit's your fault. If somebody else did it and rear ends you, you can relax. Your insurance takes care of it. You should have insurance. Two things that a lot of people do: judge and criticize others when they're far from perfect themselves, and reacting like certain events are the end of the world when they ultimately end up being nothing but minor inconveniences in the grand picture of things. If Shinji took a moment to look at himself, look around his room, and moved forward amicably and correctly, he would have cleaned up his room, cleaned up his own act, and tried to improve himself first before going out and criticizing and judging his peers and staining the world with his own toxicity. Instead of rising above and improving himself, he went out and stained the world while dragging it down with him. He remained his same miserable, flawed self, stayed at the same rung on the ladder, just the illusion of accomplishment and superiority by becoming a tyrant and bringing everybody else that was above him down to the ground, so it looks like he is so great when really he didn't even move an inch. Sometimes shit requires a full restart, but wouldn't you rather be on the bottom rung of a ladder you want to be on than the middle or top rung of a ladder that you don't want to be on? So I think just remember that. Clean your own room before you judge how dirty everything else is. Put your own life in order as best you can before you decide to criticize. Most people will realize they don't got justification to say a damn thing. Don't judge people and their relationships, careers, hobbies, interests, styles, choices, successes, their lives as a whole. If you yourself are miserable, toxic, unkempt, broke, and insecure, help yourself. It's like that quote I think of and say all the time. It is yourself that must constantly be transforming. You can't bring the same stale self to the world and expect the world to be new for you. It's a two-way street. And another thing Ritsu tells Shinji, because Shinji didn't think any of this shit through, as most people don't. He tells Shinji, like, hey, dude, shut up. We both did something unforgivable. Nothing is going to save us. Ritsu has come to terms with his choices. He isn't complaining, and he isn't looking for a miracle or a rescue. He isn't looking to be saved because he knows he isn't going to be. That's not how life is. You're not the main character in an anime, okay? Your life ain't a movie. This is the real world. It goes back to the concept and lesson before. One, shut up and stop complaining and criticizing and judging. It's obnoxious and annoying and pointless, and nobody wants to hear it. Two, don't expect your problems to be fixed by anyone or anything. Shinji made his choices. He has free will. He fulfilled those actions himself. When you make your bed, you lie in it. You can't have your damn cake and eat it too. And I don't believe in the phrase, you get what you deserve, because I don't believe in karma, or at least the karma most people know, because that's the pop or Western culture version of karma. Most people don't even know what karma is. I believe in the actual Sanskrit, traditional Buddhist, Indian yogi belief in karma. You don't get what you deserve, you just get whatever comes to you. Literally, it is what it is. Cause and effect. It's a science, not morality. What happens happens simply because that's what happened. Your cause yields an effect. Your next action will bring about whatever reaction. Stop attaching morality to everything. But whatever you do, you have to live with that. You make your bed and you lie in it. That is what Ritsu is telling Shinji here. You didn't do what you were supposed to, and now you want to go back on your actions, but that's not how life works. We don't have a rewind button. We don't even have a pause button. We're always in play. Deal with it. Dealing with your problems is always better than not dealing with them. It just ain't Ritsu's problem. It's his own. So he's out. Why should he care? All he cares about is what he can do. I can do whatever I want as long as I have these powers, he said. Ritsu sure is confident. He wants to be his brother so much, he literally fills his shoes. He wants to be white tea poison, so he pretends to be. the one they believe to have first defeated Teru, and now the other gang leader. So now it's everybody together versus Ritsu alone. Even captures the attention of the mysterious purple hooded figure. He seems to be a collector or something. Obviously evil. We saw him on the phone, I'm pretty sure. He mentioned wanting to extract the individual to take them somewhere. So obviously kidnap. But for what, I don't know. But clearly, he must actually be out for Mob. But just like everyone else, he thinks Ritsu is Mob because he's the one gathering all this attention. Mob is at least good at concealing himself and being inconspicuous. So I'm unsure if the purple hooded figure is actually after Mob or if he's actually after Ritsu, and if he's been tricked as well into thinking that white deep poison is Ritsu instead of Mob, and they're just filling it in the shoes and everybody's just all mixed up. And I can't get over how top tier this episode's dialogue was. The script, the personality, the morals, ethics, attitudes, ideologies, all conveyed through the words spoken by our lesser exposed characters. We know a lot about Mob, but just think about the dialogue and the quotes we received from Reagan, Teru, Ritsu this episode. And I say this because the highlight of dialogue this episode came at the end for me from Ritsu when he said to all the gang leaders, I will not judge you because I know now. When people stray from the right path, there usually isn't an actual reason. I'm facing enemies that have lost all will to fight, and I'm moving forward for the sake of violence. There's no reason here. This kind of freedom is strong. I'm much freer than all of you because I've lost my limits. I've obtained loss. Holy fucking shit. Okay, I just did so many of these. Holy fucking shit, that gave me goosebumps during the first reaction and even during my second watch when I was writing down notes. I had to write that down to get that exact. The title of the episode, Exaltation, I've obtained loss. I questioned how someone could feel an almost overwhelming sense of happiness for having lost something. That's what exaltation, I've obtained loss means. And now it makes perfect sense. Ritsu wants to be as strong as he can be. He has vowed to no longer lose to anyone, meaning the shackles are off, as he says. He has lost his limits. While, say, some superheroes don't kill, for example, on one end of the spectrum, there is no boundary or line he won't cross. No limit he will allow to hold him back from achieving the power he desires. Reminds me of that scene from Spider-Man 2 when Otto Octavius is performing his experiment for the first time.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
I'm just going all out with the superhero and Spider-Man references today for some reason. I don't know why that's in my mind so much. There is nothing more freeing than having nothing to lose. He has lost his innocence. He has lost his perfection. He has been knocked down from the pedestal. He has done horrible things, things he can't go back from, as well as he feels no remorse, no hesitation, no feeling with his actions. He does not do for any reason or with any reason. There not need or exist any justification. If you were to ask him why, he wouldn't have an answer. He is moving forward purely for the sake of violence, he says, and he admits there is no justifiable reason there. What he has lost is anything to hang on to, and that is ultimate freedom. I think it's especially interesting the phrase, I have obtained loss. Two contradictory words, obtain, lose, obtained, lost. By losing something, he has also then, by effect, received something greater. To gain something by losing something, to have obtained by losing. As I said before, it's about trade-offs, and what he got by losing his limits is worth more to him than what he lost in the first place. So powerful. Now, I can get into my overall idea concept of this episode, the battling senses between guilt and redemption. Obviously, Ritsu had held the spotlight this episode. This episode was for him and carried by him. He is progressing down the path towards villainhood, a dark, dark path that he is fully aware of, which adds an interesting element, as most villains do not acknowledge this, or they believe that they aren't evil. That is why I love the Star Wars Legends content for Darth Vader, for example. In those stories is where you really got to understand his heart and mind, the torture he endured mentally, emotionally, and physically, the thoughts he had, the dreams he had, the awareness he had for his existence, is him recognizing his loss, acknowledging. To be self aware of your darkness is an extremely fascinating and deep addition to a character. Here with Ritsu, it goes against what we have seen previously with our antagonists, who deluded themselves in one way or another into believing they actually exist on a higher moral plane in the right. Not Ritsu. His eyes are open to his wrongdoings, and he admits his immense guilt, wanting to throw up from himself. He has suffered greatly, but does not seek redemption. He believes there is no saving him. He's done the unforgivable. It is a great ethical dilemma, pursuing this path regardless of the guilt and corruption that consumes him. He wants to be powerful, and he realizes these feelings of guilt and corruption now serve as the fuel for his powers. So he can't let them go. He can't get rid of that guilt and corruption. To redeem himself would mean giving up on his dreams. To redeem himself would mean sacrificing all of this potential as an esper in his eyes. He isn't driven by self righteousness or self importance, like, say, Teru or Shinji, you could say that they were, just a raw sense of power. This, to me, makes him the first true villain, driven by guilt, not overcome by it. I love the symbolism we get from first seeing Ritsu look out at the city on the school rooftop, peering through the chain link fence, gripping the metal as though he was behind bars, a barrier between him and a much larger world he spoke of. Compare that to the scene later on near the end of the episode, the scene of Ritsu standing on top of that electric pole like he's in Uchiha or something, hands in his pockets like Killua, looking over the same city as before, but on much higher elevation, almost as a deity, and completely free now, symbolizing the loss of his limits, losing those barriers. Great symbolic contrast right there. Then flip the coin. On the flip side of the coin, when calculating the inverse, we observe Teru. Two fundamentally different people, actually. Remember, Teru was delusional, and Mob snapped him out of that. Ritsu is under no such delusion. When Teru was overpowered, it was a revelation to him. When Ritsu was overpowered, he was filled with an even greater, further desire for power. Teru, we can tell from his dialogue, has adopted the philosophies from Mob, and he genuinely holds guilt over his past. Both of these characters feel guilt. Teru is the one who channels that guilt into paving a path towards redemption. He's rebuilt his confidence, just as we see low angle shots of Ritsu to convey his own imposing presence now. He also gets low angle camera shots of Teru, specifically when shaking Ritsu's hand, as he said, having trouble standing on your own 2 feet. As well as, remember, like, you saw the girls across the street. The girls across the street are still gawking at him, showing that his powers do not bring these things to him, his popularity, but his personality and other traits do. He doesn't need to rely on his powers to maintain that lifestyle. He can just rely on himself. His confidence can thrive without the need to put down others in order to maintain it. Just as Mob tried to push Teru in the right direction, he too now is trying to push others in the right direction. Teru originally tried recruiting Mob to almost be his sidekick when they first sized each other up, but it seems Teru will likely become Mob's sidekick instead. Even went looking for Mob to let him know what's happening with Ritsu, to either ask for help and to also simply maybe let his new ally know important information because he knows, okay, this guy's more powerful than me. I can count on him. I'm going to go tell him, especially because I don't think Teru knows that Ritsu is his brother. So I don't think he's going to tell Mob, like, hey, I found your brother doing this sketchy shit. Because I don't think Teru knows Ritsu and Mob are brothers. I could be mistaken, but I'm not sure he is aware of that. I also see Tenga going through his own redemptive arc with the help of the Body Improvement Club, led by Musashi. They will help empower him once more by clearing his name and hopefully coming out of the tunnel a better person. It's an interesting notion, I think. Many of us have felt in our lives once or a few times before, where some of the most painful experiences ended up being the better for us in the long run, whether it was, getting cheated on or a bad breakup, failing at something, losing a friend, etc. Those most painful experiences somehow push us to be better at the end of the day once it's all said and done in the long run. So you appreciate those moments more. And then finally, we got Reagan. He has become a true mentor for and protector of Mob. He may be a con artist, but I believe it is a very nuanced dynamic. Mob insults con artists by calling them terrible people, to which Reagan cannot reply without, veering his eyes in another direction away from Mob out of guilt and acknowledgement of himself and his own actions. We know he does feel bad for using Mob and taking advantage of him, but there is more to what he is, who he is, and more than just empty words to pacify Mob in that moment. Most cons prey on their victims' weaknesses. Even he says there is nothing worse than those people. Reagan cons his clients in the form of mutual exchange, if anything. It doesn't matter really if the other party is aware of it or not. He doesn't intimidate or force his clients into a corner in attempt to ruin them for everything they've got, like those two tried to do to Mob. Remember, he still charges fair rates and he genuinely tries to help his clients and he does. He has legitimately saved people. He just doesn't always in the way those people intended to be saved or helped. Many people seek supernatural answers to everyday normal human problems. I think that is incredibly symbolic too. People seek supernatural answers to everyday normal human problems. People pray for miracles or hope for miracles for things in their lives to change when you don't need a supernatural answer like that. You don't need to win the lottery. You don't need to pray. You don't need to do these things. You just need to do shit yourself. Reagan recognizes this, how unnecessary it is, and pushes them in the right direction. To me, it doesn't really matter if it's done through deception. Sometimes there does involve a spirit or some supernatural force to which he asks for Mob's help because he needs Mob's help. He's letting Mob do a good thing too, using and channeling his powers for good, not against other people, but against spirits. So he can feel fulfilled, but when he doesn't need Mob's help, he can do it himself. For the supernatural answers, go to the supernatural esper. For the everyday normal problems, I can handle that myself, he says. Either way, the client's needs are met at the end of the day. We haven't seen Reagan and or Mob not hold their end of the deal. He does put himself first, of course, and always make sure he benefits, but he does care for his clients. He cares for Mob, he cares for his clients. Or else he would be like every other con artist out there. And we still see Reagan feel guilty. What I think or assume is there once was a time maybe Reagan was indeed no better than the other con artists out there, just lumped in the bunch. He was one of them, taking advantage of others' weaknesses. He was a terrible person, as Mob would describe. The Reagan we see now today is most likely on his own path towards redemption, straying away from his old self. So, just a really interesting thing to ponder and pick apart. Every single episode is so dense, so deep, full, and just waiting to be picked apart like an onion, layer by layer, like a Matryoshka doll. And then, of course, the episode ends with Mob and Ritsu together in the alley. Mob witnessing his younger brother, recognizable by face, but probably unrecognizable by much else. And Ritsu face to face with the one he wishes to surpass and defeat, his own brother. Next episodes will either be beyond intense or incredibly anticlimactic. We'll have to wait and see. But that is where I'm going to end the discussion today. If you enjoyed the video, hitting the like button to let me know is awesome. Better yet, so many of you watching my videos are not yet subscribed, so if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel to stay in the loop. Keep the conversation going down in the comments below where this community can grow and connect even more. If you want to support me and receive limited time exclusive Let's Watch series content in return, you can always join Jigcud's Journey over on my Patreon. It really means a whole lot to me. Having said all that, and with that said, so long, farewell, until next time, thank you, stay happy, and I hope you have a good one. Peace.